but you need to make sure you follow directions. Remember, I said to your right. So here, remember, it goes against the clock. So if you look at the clock, right, counterclockwise, it goes from 6 to 12.
It's right. And it's not even that same. It's just like when you're actually kind of I'm recommending it. We can get this from out.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you decline, there's a slight change. Students will report directly to the theater from second period. And so your enrichment at 11:10 will begin in the theater directly after second period. Y'all have a great day today and look forward to seeing the 9th graders in the theater today.
So it's just 9th graders, is that what she's saying? I didn't hear it at first, that's what I was trying to get. So we're going to get started in just a second. Make sure you get your answers in there because it shouldn't take us too long, right? So, Madison, what's the issue with several of these responses?
They forgot their names.
All right, guys, I'm trying to get you to talk with each other and get to know each other's names, trying to build those relationships. Make sure you pay attention to that, right? Grey's Anatomy, I have no clue whose favorite TV show right now is Grey's Anatomy. Plus, this is something I'm trying to learn about you as well. So whose favorite was Grey's Anatomy? Brantley? Do you still watch it?
Hey.
Man, my wife had me watching it through the first like 8 seasons, and I just couldn't.
They need a ball in that hospital.
I don't know how that show's still going. All the others. I just got The Office, favorites being The Office. Devlin.
Stranger Places. I ain't never heard of that.
I like The Office a whole lot. Stranger Things, I respect that a whole lot. I don't know. I would say I don't know what Ki is, Kaya, and then whatever her favorite is. Is that the Chi or the Chai? Shy? I've never heard of that show.
I can't.
I've heard it's super good.
Ah, gotcha. I would say, did someone say The Boys for real?
That's some calling.
Man, I tell you what, that show's wild, but that's a.
That's my favorite.
Alright, fair enough. Bob the Builder. Alright. Alright. One Piece.
One Piece.
It's just too much for me to start. Okay.
I love that show.
I ate too much. I just had a
Really quick poll question. I was hoping to have more options. If we don't get to this lesson until tomorrow, I will have more options for you. For instance, I'm going to do, especially for those of y'all from Kate that like Stranger Things, Kate Bush's I'm Running Up a Hill. I'm working on getting Crazy in Love by Beyonce, and there's one more, House of Gold by 21 Pilots. So if we get a chance, if we don't get to this part of the lesson today, there'll be more song choices tomorrow. There was just way too many things I had to get done last night. For instance, I didn't leave here till 4:30 because I was working on this. I'm going to make it way prettier, but these are the classroom norms that, as all my classes, we agreed upon. And so I actually had all the posters from all my classes all around the room yesterday. Had to synthesize everything, so it was a time. I'll show you the pictures later, just because I didn't get those in to the slides for today. But go ahead and get your vote in. I got 19 of 23. This is America.
Oh,
I'm actually.
Ain't no way.
No.
Seriously?
Y'all really choosing Childish Gambino over Queen?
Exactly.
Like,
But have you listened to This is America?
Like, be real.
It's good.
Be
But
real.
Queen is so much better.
Be real. Like, literally be real.
So we'll have other options if we don't get there today. But if you haven't listened to This is America, that is probably one of the most powerful songs I've heard
I'm not her Queen.
in the modern era.
Exactly.
Right, I was like, it's pretty accurate. Okay.
You've never heard of Queen? No.
Everybody has heard of, what's the, well, I guess, have y'all even watched Mighty Ducks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, well, that is first, but when they do We Will Whack You, it's off of We Will Rock You, the Queen song.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard that song, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't think you've heard that song, if I've heard that song, I know you've heard that song. All right. So let's get started with today. Agenda, just a quick reminder of active collaboration scores. Yesterday we were pretty good. Does anyone see where I put my green attendance book? I had it somewhere.
Just
I
sorry.
think I set it back, thank you. Overall, we did do pretty well in this class. I had, I think, 1.5 for active collaboration. I had quite a few 4s and 4.5s, but I did have several 3s, and I want to point out why I had some 3s and 3.5s. I'm gonna go ahead and do this right now. How are we defining mathematics? What is math?
Language.
Okay, is a language for
Patterns and relationships.
study of patterns and relationships. Don't forget, that's how we want to focus on math, is the study of patterns and relationships, and we need a language for that. So what are the 3 things mathematicians do with those patterns and relationships? First, they
Analyze.
notice. All right, someone else I haven't heard from yet. They notice first. They describe the patterns and relationships, and I've already heard from you. I need someone I haven't heard from yet. And then they generalize those patterns and relationships, right? So that's what math is. And now we're studying statistics, which remember I said it's not really a math, it's actually the other way around, mathematical science, right? We're going to make hypotheses, we're going to make predictions, and then we're going to collect data to help us determine if we believe the hypothesis or not. So I do just constantly want to remind you of what is math. So first lesson, statistics, right? So this is volume 2 of your textbook still. We're going to look at what does it mean to have a representative sample. And then we're going to get to the second lesson today, maybe, but we'll get there in a little bit. So, and if we don't get there today, as I said before, we'll have more song options tomorrow. But random sampling to get representative samples, okay, is what we'll get to. So active collaboration reminders, here's the thing, right? In my class, it's not enough to just be, what's the term teachers always use? Compliant, and just do an assignment. Just doing the assignment is only going to earn you a 3, right? And there were, I will say this, quite a few people in the small group side of things that would have been at a 4, but also to get to a 4, you have to satisfy this whole class discussion part. What do you have to do during the whole class discussion?
Talk.
You gotta talk, right? Notice, you only have to do 2 of the following. You have to, one of them that a lot of y'all are great at doing already is take notes, but you also have to actively share thoughts and you have to ask questions. We have 23 students in the class, and so no, you can't all talk all at once, but I need to very clearly see that you are actively processing the things being talked about and that you are actively trying to get into the conversation. That's the biggest issue, that if you only earned a 3, it's probably because you weren't sharing your thoughts or asking questions during the whole class discussion. Just ask questions. That's the easiest one. Well, can you explain this idea further? Or when someone makes a statement, right? Not to call her out, now she's going to be embarrassed that I call her out. I was talking with Kaya yesterday because Kim and I are really close and we talk all the time. That's her mom's down on the corner. And she was like, well, someone already said stuff and that's what I was thinking, so I didn't want to add in. But remember, as soon as someone finishes talking, for the most part, I'm going to ask the question, does anybody want to push back on that, or does anyone want to add on to that? Just actively being involved and saying, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, or I want to add a small detail on. If you have anything that's different, get involved in that conversation, okay? And so I just need you to be involved. And the more that you talk, the more that you engage, the more fun this class will become. All right?
Alright, who got to 5?
Say again?
Who got to 5?
I don't know.
It with me, wouldn't it?
So here's what I will say, okay? I will share the one of my goals tonight or tomorrow is to send out the first parent newsletter or guardian newsletter for the semester. And when I do that, I'll send that out to all parents all at the same time, because it's just to give them a heads up of, hey, this is what my class is like. These are the things that you want to be aware of. It's only 2 or 3 pages. And so I'll send it to you as well, but I will ask, please have your parents read through it because I want them to be engaged in the classroom, and I'm going to send a quick little Google survey for them to respond so that I can collect some information to see what questions they have, see what they think I can do to help you, because they can give me good insights into how I can help you. So I'll let y'all know when I send that out, but again, that's going to be via email, so be looking at the email that you put on the syllabus. But when I do that, what I was going to say is I'm going to also individually go to email you and your parent a Google sheet that I will try to update every day or every other day, where I have the active collaboration score, so you can see how I am seeing your collaboration in class. Because, Madison, it is important that you know how you're doing, because if you're scoring 4s and 5s, what I'm seeing is that you're actively engaged and you're learning and growing, right? If I'm seeing a 3 or a 2, you need to be aware of that so that you know how to step it up. Okay? Comments, questions, concerns? Okay? If anybody does have the defining math homework or the syllabus to turn in, get it out. I'll collect it from you at some point today. But the lesson that we're looking at, we did this heavily yesterday. We're not going to go back over it, but identify statistical versus non-statistical questions. What makes a question statistical? Okay, so if the responses have variability, was just that term that we use, right? So variation, but if we expect there to be variability, again, that doesn't mean that there is variability in the response. Everyone could have the same response. But if you expect variability, or there's that possibility, then it's a statistical question. What made data numerical? When it has numbers, right? Is it every time there's numbers that it's numerical?
No.
No? What do we need? Numerical
measurable.
answers. But it needs to be something we can measure. One thing I'll also point out is, thinking about it this way, if it's something that you can average, typically it's going to be numerical. If it's something that you can average, right? Are you going to average people's zip codes?
No.
Heck no, right? That's not numerical data. We talked about it yesterday. That's categorical, right? If the responses fit something into a category, that's categorical data. So keep that in mind. We started yesterday on identifying populations, samples, and characteristics of interest. We'll get back to that in a second. And today, we're going to talk about the difference between or among surveys, observational studies, and experiments. Because each type of study allows you to make different predictions. So it's important to understand those differences. Those are key terms that you have to know for assessments, okay? I got to get through the planning side of things, but my guess is that we will have a short understanding check. I'll explain more about that later, either Thursday or Friday. But again, that's a check on your understanding more so I can give you feedback so that you can improve your understanding before a test, right? So learn from your mistakes. So, we actually talked about this already. Don't forget this part, right? Statistics, all about representing and analyzing data. The question is, what story does the data tell you? Alright, so we looked here, data everywhere. This is, I believe, M5-65 or 67, somewhere in there. 66 and 67 is where we started yesterday. Can someone quickly remind me what it means to be a characteristic of interest? Madison?
It's like the subject of the question or like thing you're trying to figure out.
Okay, so I'm going to push back a little bit. Not quite the subject. It could be the subject, but the subject could mean a couple different things. Emma, what are you thinking?
It's the person that you want to target for that specific survey or that specific question.
Okay, does anybody want to push back on that or add more detail onto that? Hudson?
It's the question you're trying to answer.
The question we're trying to answer, does anyone want to push back or add on to that? Kaya?
It could be the specific question or a specific answer to information.
I'm going to push on that. It's the information that you're trying to collect. Right? It's the information that you're trying to collect. If I'm talking about everybody that I could get a response from, that would be the what? The population, right? So everybody or everything, the subjects are actually part of the population. And then what do we call the small group that we would collect data actually from? Sample, right? So those are key terms we got to be aware of. Hopefully as a quick little recap. We went through all of this, right? And we ended with writing a survey question, right? So remember, the researcher here wanted to design a sample survey to determine the amount of time that U.S. teenagers between the ages of 16 to 18 spend online. But that's not the question that you're going to ask directly to somebody. What were the questions we came up with yesterday? How old are you, right? Because we need only people between 16 and 18. And Destiny, I think you keep raising your hand. I keep skipping over you. I'm sorry. Do you know what the second question we developed was? How long have you been online today, right? We collect a lot of data over several days, and that's going to give us the information that we need there. All right, so here we are, 1.1, collecting a representative sample, all right? So here's the thing. If you're trying to make a prediction about a population, your sample needs to represent that population. I talked about it yesterday when we looked at the Mobile County data for ACT scores. Would Mobile County on its own be representative of the entire state of Alabama?
No.
No, that's only a small set, right? And it's a localized set. They're probably going to be more similar to each other. And so what we want to be aware of is that we do not want a biased sample. A biased sample, make sure you pay attention to that term, is a sample that is collected in a way that makes it unrepresentative of the population. A biased sample is all about how you collect the data. If you collect the data in an incorrect way, then your sample will be biased. It will not be representative, right? And so that's the key detail of, if it's biased, it's unrepresentative. If it's unrepresentative, you cannot accurately make predictions. I'm going to just put it over here. That's the thing to be aware of. If it is unrepresentative, you can't accurately make predictions. Bless you. And the whole point of statistics is, well, what story's being told here? Sorry, Madison, I forgot to turn this on earlier. I've been super behind all morning. So again, the whole point of statistics is what story is being told, right? All right. I will point out earlier, it talks about this, that again, when sample data are collected, by the way, do notice that data is plural, that's why it's are collected. Anyone know what a singular piece of information would be called? Huh? Data still? So data, when it has that A there, is plural. And you'll almost never have a singular piece of information, but this actually comes from a Latin root. If it's singular, it's datum. So like, if you've ever looked at the word alumnus or alumni, right? Typically you hear the word alumni. Technically, alumni is only multiple people who have graduated from a place. You would say alumnus or alumna for singular. And so it's just that Latin root. You don't have to know that, just fun fact. But that's why data are collected to describe a characteristic of interest. It is important that such a sample be representative, right? One way to collect a representative sample is to use a random sample, right? Because here's the thing. What does this clearly tell us that's important about a random sample? What does that random sample ensure?
That every member of the population has the same chance.
Everybody in the population has the same chance of being selected, right? Yet, yesterday I told you about that study that my students did with Gracie Vanderford, and they looked through the yearbook, right, to identify, or to have Gracie identify the different seniors and juniors. Well, what they did is they randomly sampled or randomly identified the different students to collect a representative sample of the seniors, juniors, and sophomores. If you randomly sample, you're ensuring that everyone has the same chance of being selected. Therefore, it will be not biased, it would be unbiased, right? We want something that's representative of the population. So random sampling, I'll teach you about how to do that random sampling moving forward, right? But here, number one, consider the sample survey from the getting started, right? Joni and Richie were discussing strategies that the researchers could use to select a representative sample of 16 to 18-year-olds. Joni says the sample should include 16 to 18-year-olds from various states. Richie says include 16 to 18-year-olds who live in various types of communities, like urban, suburban, and rural. And it says list some additional strategies that researchers should consider when selecting a sample. But why do you think that Joni makes this suggestion? Identifying that will help you identify other strategies. Yes, sir, Max.
Because it could, the 16 to 18-year-olds could be from the urban, suburban, or rural places. And just be selected at random.
Okay, so we would select a random within there. So you're looking at Richie's, but why does Richie make it or point out that you need some specifically from urban areas, some from suburban, and some from rural? Kind of.
Don't they kind of tie in together though? Because every state has a urban, suburban, and rural area.
Mm-hmm.
So when they sort of kind of both of them.
And I'm not saying either of these are wrong. I'm just saying they're looking at it different ways, right? So why though why is Richie making, let's focus actually on Joni first. Why is Joni saying that you should look at multiple states, not just one state? I'm going to say Melbourne, and then I'm going to come to AJ. Melbourne, what's up?
To kind of add on to what you said, it was like, you know, they can't be from like, you know, one state like where like, you know, urban, suburban, and rural places, because like it's just like, you know, that one spot, and doesn't give like anybody else a chance, like, you know, from other states, like, say anything about it, because it's in that one state instead of like spread over.
Okay, so let's use some of the statistical language that we have up here. Keep adding on to that. What's the issue if we only have from one state? AJ, do you know that, or is there something else you wanted to talk about?
Different states have different lifestyles and different occupations.
Oh, so different states might have different lifestyles. So one state might not be what? Well, it would be biased, so it would not be
Accurate.
It wouldn't be random. It's not accurate, so it is not. What is the term I'm looking for? Representative, right? Remember, if it's not representative, it is biased. Well, different states might have different lifestyles, might have different amounts of time that students spend online. So why are we looking at urban, suburban, and rural? Madison.
Because the data needs to be like representative of like all the communities, like urban, suburban, rural.
But
It needs to include
why?
everything. That way they can get an accurate like I guess like assumption.
It's different people in each, so like they must all like live
Different
There's
environments.
different lifestyles within each of those communities, right? People in, I would just guess this, which of those communities do you think would have people that spend the least amount of time online?
Rural.
Rural, right? Rural would probably spend more time doing other things. At least in my experience, people who are more rural spend more time hunting, spend more time on four-wheelers, spend more time mudding, all those fun things. You're not getting online during those activities, right? So who might be spend the most time online?
Urban.
See, I would have said suburban. Suburban typically has a little bit more money, a little bit more time for relaxation. Urban, right? A lot of times we're playing basketball, we're playing soccer in like little community areas. We're working instead of spending time online. And that's the thing, right? There's no right answer. I don't know for sure. That's just my prediction, right? What's the data going to tell me? I don't know. But again, each of those communities might have differences, so we need data from each of those communities. So take a couple minutes, try to see if there's any other groups that might be different. So we might want to collect data from each of those groups. Take 2 minutes to discuss. We'll come back together. So it's the question, it's the list, yes.
It's the same question.
But anyway,
Yes, from the getting started.
I'll go to war. Anyway, what is he asking?
It's the same question.
He's talking about like they already like covered almost everything. Urban, like not too rural, not too suburban. And then you got rural, that's the sticks. And then you got suburban. Like they covered everything they have to cover.
Yes. Oh, never mind. Forgot. Say it again.
like every, if you know, we.
Different religions might allow different amounts of time online.
What's some additional strategies? What's some additional strategies? Like, it's asking what groups they consider, but I can't think of that they should.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so just let's get some ideas out there. So I'm gonna let this run. What are some of the different groups that we might want to include? I'm not going to write these up here because there's lots of options. Just any groups, AJ.
People with jobs.
Okay, so specifically people who have jobs versus those who don't. So that might be a data point that we would collect. Who would spend less time online probably? People with jobs, right? Emma and Madison, I assume y'all have the same one, right?
Athletes. Yep, 1,000.
Okay, so athletes versus non-athletes, right? If you're an athlete, you got more time at practice. You have less leisure time, all right? What other groups?
Parents.
We're talking about 16 to 18.
16 to 18-year-olds. Remember, it's only those 16 to 18-year-olds. Kai, what were we saying?
It can happen.
Okay, so extracurriculars versus no extracurriculars. Zaria. Okay, looking at different religions. Maybe different religions allow time online versus others. Samayan?
I was going to say different races.
Okay, so different races, maybe even different cultures,
Yeah.
right? So that might be something as well. I'm only going to hear from people I haven't heard from yet, so just hold on. Let's go with Alasia, then Hudson, then Melbourne, and I'll stop there. So Alasia.
But some teens get pregnant when they're 16.
Zero.
I'm dead serious.
Zero.
Okay, so 16 to
That's not the
18-year-old.
norm.
Well, so 16 to 18-year-olds with kids versus without kids, right?
Mark.
Because that could be a mom and a dad, right? So guys can be included in that. Hudson.
You do like public school versus like homeschool.
Oh, public school versus homeschool versus private school.
True, that's smart.
Right, that's a good one. Melbourne.
Depending on where you live, connections with like
Internet.
and stuff like that, like internet.
Okay.
Wi-Fi.
Okay. Hold on. I'll say this. I'm surprised because I would have thought the most common response would have just been guys versus girls. Could there be a difference in guys online versus girls online?
They stay on the game.
Right? Gender plays a role in that kind of thing. So again, right? There are lots of different groups out there that we want to be aware of. So considering, right, we already know we need random samples, but considering those different groups can give us a better picture, right? Making sure that we collect data from each of those groups. All right. So Charisse suggests that researcher could post the survey online and then distribute the link to the survey to students after school on Friday as they are leaving the building. Does this method result in a representative sample? Man, that textbook butchered that one. Does it result in a representative example or representative sample? Explaining your reasoning. I want you to just take 2 minutes. Actually, yeah, 2 minutes. Talk about it with your group and come up with an idea of whether you think it does or does not.
I think it's a sample.
Those
Yeah, they're only kind of
so then they just take the survey.
So yeah, so you would post it online, you would give the link to where that survey is online, and then students on their own would be responsible for it.
I thought I put it as
Would it represent like everyone in like the school system?
It would be, yeah, like
So the
if
people
they
that
would
are
have to leak out to like,
Less would be less likely to complete a survey.
I'd be trying to buy.
Well, you're giving out the link.
That's
They
why
would know about the survey. But
the research
they probably might be doing other things. Right.
actually the link to the survey. Students are still fine. But like if that doesn't make sense, that would say they go to a suburban school, right? Like that is only representing like not even representing. It's only like getting
Injustice.
But I get that. I get that. But also there's, let's say like just for high schools, there's also suburban schools in that school. Yeah. So you're talking about one school. How many schools are in the school system?
It's not representing like rural. You know what I'm saying?
Some people are not
Like,
gonna get it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. All right, so what do y'all think? Raise your hand if you think it would be representative. Raise your hand if you think it would be biased. So we're all in agreement on it being biased. And I will say this, there's a couple different reasons why I would agree that it is biased. One thing I was just because I heard different groups talking about this, let's just assume, and I know it's a dangerous thing, let's just assume that the population is only this school. All right? So instead of it being all schools in the entire US or all schools in a city, we're going to assume that the population is just this school. All right? So we are only collecting information about these students. So from there, why would this be still biased? Madison?
because it's only representing like say the school is like in a suburban area, like it's only representing that school. Like
So remember, and that's why I'm saying that we're only going to look at that school. So we're not going. So the population is only that school of students. So that wouldn't be an issue because I only care about those students.
but
all
you're
right.
trying to get like a bigger group than what you're
But I get you. But what I'm saying is, and so hear this, it depends on how you define the population. If I'm defining the population as all U.S. teens, 16 to 18, I guess you're right still, because that is technically what we're trying to look at. So yeah, one reason would be only that school. So that school wouldn't be representative of all U.S. teens. I forgot that that's the context. Only that school, so not representative. Of all U.S. teens, 16 to 18. All right. What are some other reasons that it would be biased? Kaya.
So you know how, I know pretty much everybody here, some ride the bus and some actually drive out of school. And if you're giving it out, there's most likely you will miss people who aren't going to be able to get the link.
Okay. So you might miss some people who wouldn't get the link. Miss some who travel differently. And I don't know for sure, but is there a possibility that those who drive themselves versus those who ride the bus have different amounts of time online? Yeah. So that's a possibility. So then if I'm missing part of that group, then yeah, it'd be biased. I'm missing data from that other part. Can't